In this video, we're going to have a look at how to create and run our first graphical user interface. So to get started, let's open up Visual Studio 2017. And my screen might look a little bit different than yours because I've got certain types of it comes up with my start page, but there's also sometimes people might have their toolbox pop up, or they might have the developer news that might be displaying, and all this can be modified for your own liking. So when I start up, this is how it comes up. What I want to point out here is that when you start, you should log into your Visual Studio account. So by doing that, go in the top right corner and you can set up a profile to do that. So there's managing your Visual Studio profile. So it'll open up Visual Studio and it creates your own personal cloud-based environment. So it creates your own URL here. So I've created mine with a username of Ryan, because that wasn't taken, at visualstudio.com. So that's my particular web presence for Visual Studio. And we can look at this in later videos, but this basically allows us to work on projects in a team environment and store our assignments. So I've got my assignments actually up here online as well. All right, so let's go back to the Visual Studio environment, and we've got our account set up. Now, over here we can get more information on Visual Studio. We can find out what recent programs that I've been working on, and if I've signed in, this will keep track of that. I can open up existing projects that we've been working on in the past, or we can open up a brand new project. That's what we're going to do in this video here. So from there, I'm going to go down to where it says Create a New Project, and select that, and we come up with this form which we've seen in Chapter 1. And again, we want to do a Visual C#, and this time instead of doing a command line interface or a console application, we're going to focus in on window form applications. This is our GUI environment. So this is where we're going to create our first GUI in-class assignment. So we're going to select that, and then down here we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call mine, this is Chapter 2, and this is my in-class exercise. How's that? And then we want to put it up on the cloud. Now, by default, you saw mine had actually a Visual Studio 2017 object here where I can store it in my repository, and I could do that, but for this course, I would recommend that you guys store all your files on your OneDrive here at Douglas College, and you created a folder I think called CSIS 1175. And from there, it's going to create a folder here called Chapter 2 in Class Exercise. I already have one here, so I'll see how that works. When I save it again, yeah, it might say I already have that file created. So I might have to give it another, let's see, number 2 here. All right, so I'm going to say OK. And that's going to create a structure on my cloud that's going to set up all the files to deal with this particular solution. All right, and in this class, what we're going to do is we want to create a program. And so to get started here, let's take a look at Visual Studio and its components. So this area, this large area here, is called the design area. So this is where the Windows application is going to be built on. It's sort of the canvas, if you were a painter, to start designing and building it. Over here on the far right is the Solution Explorer. This is where we can organize all the different objects and parts of this puzzle that we're going to put together here. It's all organized in this Explorer, the Solution Explorer. And you can see that, for example, this form over here can be located right there. And then later when we start coding it, we're going to put in some program code, and it's going to go inside of here. All right, so down below, this is called the property window. Not only that will display when we're looking at an object. So the only object I have right now is a form object here. And when I click on that, it shows you all the properties of that form. So for example, the form has a name. It has the ability to have an accept button. It's got the ability to size it, where it's located, the color, the background. These are all sort of attributes or properties of this particular object, which is kind of neat. All right, so to get started, what we want to do is we want to look at the problem. What are we trying to program? This is really the solution. And what I'm going to do is go through that in the next video. So I'll pause here and we'll start that in part 2.